Let's talk about fatigue and inflammation related to static stretching. So I recently put a story up on our Instagram account that cited a study where they showed fatigue mechanisms and reductions in power and output that lasted up to 20 minutes after a bout of static stretching. The author also showed an increase in inflammatory markers after static stretching. And so the question becomes, is static stretching bad for you? And in my mind, it actually almost makes me want to look at static stretching even more because a lot of the things that are good for us, exercise, different manual therapy techniques, they all put a stress to the body, which creates an inflammatory response. And then that generates an anti-inflammatory and a regenerative cascade that kind of promotes in healing and compensation, kind of makes our body adapt to get better at it. So it almost makes me go, we need to do more static stretching potentially. But the downside to static stretching here is those fatigue mechanisms reduce power output and fatigue the area for up to 20 minutes. So I don't know that it would support the use of static stretching before exercise. If your goal is to get stronger, get faster, those types of things. So I'm going to lift weights to be able to put more weight and generate more power. I probably don't want to fatigue myself beforehand doing a static stretch. Or if I'm competing in a sport where I need to be able to run fast, jump high, probably not a good time to do static stretching first because it's going to fatigue the muscle beforehand, which I don't need, right? I want to prep the tissue for activity. So in those cases, I think getting your nervous system ready to fire with more dynamic type warm-ups, more heart rate based warm-ups, probably makes more sense than static stretching based on what we're seeing in this study. However, it may encourage me to use static stretching at the end of a session or on off days because now maybe I'm able to create some changes at those different ranges of motion, right? Because if I get an inflammatory response, maybe that could trigger hypertrophy in the muscle at that new range of motion where the muscle gets bigger or stronger or more usable in that range. Maybe there's some implications for pain, and I'm specifically thinking of like neural tensioning when you got pain through a nerve pathway. Could we use static stretching as a way to generate some inflammation to have an effect on that pain patterning? And certainly now there's a dosage question, right? How much stretching is enough? How much inflammation triggers a positive response, but we're still able to get to a regenerative aspect? Similar questions to what we use with eccentric exercise or manual therapy and the like. So anyway, I think this study puts a lot of cool questions out there. I think it further supports the idea that we're not going to do static stretching before a competitive event or before a lifting event where I don't want my muscles to be fatigued. And I think it brings in some implications of how can we utilize stretching to accomplish other goals other than warming up.